Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you today for this Talk It Out Tuesday. I'm Dr. Wanda Boone, and my organization is Together for Resilient Youth. We are a coalition of coalitions, and we have um, other partners that are across North Carolina, across the United States, Kenya, Australia, and the UK. And for our coalition, we have our youth coalition, Living in Future Tense, which is LIFT, College Tribe for college age young people, Good Neighbor Business, Faith, Law Enforcement, Community, Health, School, Parents, and Resilient Together are a group of parents that have lost children due to overdose. And so today we are going to talk about bridging the divide to talk it out. And our guests here, myself, Nancy Rosales, wave Nancy, Nathalia Rosales, right there, hey. And we're going to talk about communication challenges and successes, the highway and the sandwich. I know that you're wondering what in the world that could be. And before we get started, I wanted to say, please be sure to use the chat for any questions that you have. The three of us will be around at the end. So if you want to come off mute and ask questions of this group, you will feel free to do so. Nancy and Nathalia are members of Together for Resilient Youth, and they are so appreciative, and we appreciate them, in other words, for being a part of this discussion today. So without further ado, we're going to have introductions.
Nathalia, you have not been doing your homework. What is going on? I had several phone calls from your principal and your counselor, and they're telling me that you're having low grades on your assignments, and I thought you were doing your homework, and you're not doing your homework. So please let me know what's going on.
I'm just really stressed out. I need time for myself. I'm getting burnt out with all these assignments. Please try to understand that they're just overworking me with all these new AP classes, and now it's getting harder to keep up with stuff and sports.
But no, you are not listening to me. I tell you to do your work. I tell you to do your homework. You're just not following directions. You're not listening.
Are you listening to me? I just told you the problem.
Okay. Uh-oh, everybody. I think we have a problem. Did you realize that we could hear what you were saying? Oh my goodness. Well,
oh no.
All right. So now I guess we will, well, I'm just a little taken aback, but let's go on to talk about how to communicate.
Oh my gosh.
Most certainly,
Wow.
yes.
Okay. So the first thing that we're going to ask is, how well do you know me? That's a question that I'm sure young people have. Nathalia demonstrated for us that she's stressed out. There's too much to do. And so how much does mom know about that? And Nancy, her mom may be stressed out too, and she doesn't need to have yet another conversation with Nathalia about doing her homework, because of course we think that children should just do what they're supposed to do the first time. So the first question is, how well do you know me? Well, I want Nathalia and Nancy to look at this picture, and I want you to tell me, let's see, I'll start with Nathalia. Nathalia, what on this picture would your mom never eat?
I think she wouldn't ever eat whatever the bowl with the magenta looking stuff in the top right corner with the white thing in the middle. The soup, I can't tell what that is.
Okay. And Nancy, what on this picture do you think Natalia would never eat?
I know she would not eat the meat that it's in the table. Is it salami or I'm not sure
I'm
if
going
you
to see
said.
that.
Okay. So Nancy, did Natalia get it right that you wouldn't eat that purple stuff with the white stuff in the middle?
No, I
Well,
wouldn't.
all right, that's good. So that means that you know what Natalia likes and doesn't like. And Natalia, was your mom right about all the meat? I'm sorry.
Yes.
About cow. See?
I
Okay.
do not like it that much, no.
Okay. All right. So you know that much about each other. And for everybody that's out there, it's important to, not start with the big things. um, Part of communication is knowing what your child likes, moms knowing what your children like, children knowing what your moms like, fathers like, and then caring about that. So don't try to force things on your children that are not important. If they don't want to eat the same things that you do, it doesn't mean that you have to create and fix a whole, different meal for your child, because I know some families that do that. They fix 2 and 3 different kinds of things in order to make everybody happy. No, I'm not saying that. But come to some kind of agreement about what you're going to eat. And of course, getting to know one another goes way far beyond the table. So let's go on. Generational parenting. I'm not going to hold you in too much suspense about what the highway is or what the sandwich is. I'm not going to wait until the end to tell you about that. I'm going to tell you about that now. But first, I want us to understand that the parenting techniques that we may have or use are really based on generations. So we may do what our parents did, and our parents did what our grandparents did. And that may be good, or it may not be good. It may not work for your family. And so to say, well, that's the way I've always done it, that's the way my parents did it, that's the way their parents did it, may not work for your family. So, one of the things that I want us to do is to take a deep breath, relax, and think about parenting in a different way, in a way that works for our family, and not use another family as an example, or some ways that people had a long time ago, because things have changed from grandparents' day, from parents' day, and they're changing even now. So these are the things that children need in order to live successful lives. And the reason that I'm showing it to you, and your child may not be with you, right there with you, is because when we think about these external and internal assets that lead to successful life in all children, regardless of socioeconomic status, then let's look at our parenting and our way that our parents parented us. That was a lot. So that we can see what went well in our own lives based on what our parents did, and then maybe even think about what we may not be contributing to in the lives of our children. So, in terms of external assets, measures whether children have caring adults in their lives, which include parents, neighbors, and our teachers. Empowerment. Ask questions about how safe children feel at school and at home, as well as their perception of being valued and appreciated. Okay, I can see the wheels turning about your own parents and what they did and didn't do, what we had or didn't have. Boundaries and expectation. Homes in on whether a child feels he or she must abide by boundaries and expectations set at home, in school, and in the neighborhood, like Nancy and Nathalia and their discussion about school. And so, what does that mean in your family? Are you consistent in saying, okay, I know you need a little time when you get home, so you can have 15 minutes of rest before you start on your schoolwork or you start on your chores? Constructive use of time evaluates whether children are involved in outside activities like clubs, music, or art or sports like swimming, Nathalia, art programs, or religious groups. So, did we as parents have these things, or are we struggling now in terms of our own parenting because this didn't happen for us? Or maybe you were fortunate enough to have all of those four things. Internal assets. Commitment to learning. Ask questions related to whether children care about school and completing their homework. There's that homework again, as well as appreciate learning new things. Seeks to understand positive values. Seek to understand if children value taking responsibility for their actions and helping others, are honest and have respect for others and their community. I decided to cut the conversation off between Nathalia and Nancy because of the last thing Nathalia said. Well, I told you. We know where that would have landed for us in the generation. Well, I may be, a lot older, but that wouldn't fly. But Nathalia really would never. Well, I don't know. Social competencies measures a child's willingness to express his or her feelings, establish relationships with others, say no to activities or suggestions that are dangerous, and can find positive ways to deal with hardships. Positive identity measures a child's self-worth. So the highway parenting is, it's my way or what? The highway. It's my way or the highway. What I say goes. I don't care, child, what you think, what you feel. I don't care how hard your day is. I had a hard day too. I don't care, whether you're stressed. I have stress. That's the highway. The highway parent leaves no room for what the child's feelings are. And the sandwich is a better way of thinking about communication. With the sandwich, it's you say something good to a child, and then you voice your expectation, and you end with something good. So in the situation about the homework, the discussion the argument started with, I notice that you haven't been doing your homework. I'm getting calls from school. I get information that say you're not doing, and Nathalia's already stressed. So how is she going to hear what you're saying about the homework if that's the first thing you do is come at it? And so it could be, I know that you've been, really trying hard to do your chores, and you actually did your chores for 2 days without any prodding from me for you to do your homework. But I think we need to pay a little bit more attention to your homework because your grades may be falling. And is there a reason for that? And then Nathalia says, I'm stressed. I have a lot going on. And then mom and dad comes back and says, this is the other bread on the sandwich. I understand that you're stressed. These are stressful times for all of us. And again, I appreciate, the things that you have been doing. And let's just keep finding ways to make this work. So that's the sandwich. Many of us were raised with the highway, is like, you do what I say, I mean, there's no room for any conversation on the part of a child. So we've seen this a lot, and it actually is for parents and young people. But in terms of the parent, as hard as it may be, put the oxygen mask on yourself before attempting to help others. Make sure you're okay. If you're not okay, then you're not going to show up for your child as being okay and to be fully who you want to be as a parent. For a child, put the oxygen mask on yourself before attempting to help others. You know, in middle school, high school, not so much in elementary school, it's a time when you're surrounded by children, youth who come from different families. Those families have different values. They may come to you, your peers may come to you with their problems and worries and concerns and things they may be doing, but you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help others. You know, this kind of circle round and round and round with peers can be so exhausting. And it's almost like work that parents have. Parents go to work and they deal with all kinds of personalities, and then they come home and the darling child is there, but you don't have enough oxygen to deal with family as you would like to. So, some of the symptoms of stress, and young people can have stress, adults can have stress, teachers have stress. You know, our world is full of stress. And if there is stress, how in the world are we supposed to respond in a calm manner? Very difficult. So the symptoms of stress could be hysterics, and maybe not hysteric, but just crying, you know, because you just can't deal with the emotions, not being able to sleep, insomnia, headache, depression, anger. And so if someone is responding to just life or to a question or comment that's made, then the reason for that could be stress, and not because they want to make things difficult as a child or make things difficult as a parent. So it's important for parents and children to understand that this is what can happen in terms of uprooting communication. And so in terms of, you know, this kind of stressful situation, the first thing that we want to do is to slow down, think about the thoughts that are going through your head, and ask the question, is my behavior consistent with who I want to be? Balance. It's not easy, but we must find the way to balance. So, are we giving the right attention to work, personal and family life, rest and leisure? You will be productive and more productive when you have rest and relaxation. So, being aware when you're losing balance, and when you are aware, it gives you the opportunity to change. And the last one is connection. One of the most important things is to have social connection. And we may feel like the first thing we need to do is to go into a room, close the door, and just be alone with ourselves. And there's room for that. But if you're always by yourself and that's the only way that you can reduce stress, that's a problem. And if you don't have social connections, then you can build it. Family can be defined by the individuals that care for you. And before we get into more discussion with Nancy and Nathalia, we want to think about who or what uplifts you, what or who gives you strength, what or who helps you get through hard times. And when we have this understanding, then we can draw upon those individuals or thoughts or what helps us in times of stress. Resilience is feeling connected to caring family and community, self-regulation skills, positive view of self, motivation to thrive in your environment. And every child, I'd say every adult, needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about him or her. Nancy and Nathalia, do you have one person who is irrationally crazy about him or her? Or you? Point like this.
Yeah,
Okay.
and my cat.
And your cat. Excellent. Okay, so now we're going to get into this discussion about communication. Which family will stay standing? Well, I think you can see that one tree is healthy, the other tree is not healthy. And of course, if a tree wants to stand, and we want to be like trees that stand, then we need to make sure that we are a healthy tree. But what does that look like? So we can think about the roots as being family values. We can think about the trunk as being the strong adults in the household. We can think about children being the leaves and drawing their strength from the healthy and stress-free adults. And then the branches are the relationships between adults and children. And so, why is communication important? It helps us get to know each other and bring us closer together, allows us to help one another when storms come, makes it possible to solve problems together. You know, COVID-19 was a stressful and difficult situation. It still is, because we're getting vaccinated, and people are still getting COVID. I could go into that, but it'll take too much time, and I don't want to leave this. And so, one question that I would like to ask Nancy and Nathalia, um, what what one thing did you do, and I know the answer to this, did you do in order to relieve stress during COVID? The garden.
So I was muted.
Oh,
Yes. Um, w- one of the things that we did together was, yes, the garden. We were able to have a stress relief. So sorry for that. And it helped us to cope with our 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 worries that my, for instance, I know we don't want to discuss about it, but my father, in fact, suffered from COVID-19. So it was very stressful moments, and the garden helped Nathalia and I to get not only closer together, but to worry less and be able to breathe. Sometimes we forget to breathe, and it is very important.
hmm. Natalia, did you want to say anything about that?
Um, yeah, the whole garden was really fun. Mostly because it also brought me closer to my grandfather, who I appreciate a lot. He works in that garden all the time. Even after he got over COVID, um, it's like he became stronger because he didn't let it bring him down at all.
Mm-hmm.
And he still works in that garden all the time.
Oh,
So I'm
yeah.
glad we took care for him while he was gone.
That is so beautiful. And you see, communication doesn't necessarily have to do with a whole bunch of talking, trying to think of what am I going to say to what am I going to say to her? What am I going to say to her? What am I going to say to him? Sometimes being peaceful in an activity really makes a difference. So communication includes sharing both the good things and the hard things with each other. And I think we just heard that with you both. So thank you so much for sharing. We can't cope together during storms without communicating. But if we do learn to communicate, it will be wonderful to see how strong our families, our trees can become. So I want you to practice together this listening skills. So sometimes young people are on their devices, and sometimes parents are on their devices. You've been to out to eat, maybe, I know I have, when I see everybody at the table on their devices, mother, father, children, not looking at each other, not doing anything like that, but not paying any attention. So listening skills take these things. Act with your eyes, act with your mouth, and act with your heart. So I want you to think back about the homework issue, and I want Nathalia to say to you, Nancy, what she was saying about stress. So that means that you turn and look at each other and you repeat back, Nancy, what Nathalia says. And then you both notice the feelings that you have when you're saying something about it. So, Nathalia, talk about your stress to your mom.
Well, I'm really stressed out with school because I'm being overloaded with a lot of work that takes a lot more time to do, such as like AP assignments. And I really need time to like de-stress and calm down so these effects don't get to me and so I don't get burnt out.
And
I
so, oh, I'm sorry. So, with your mouth, you repeat back, and you don't have to repeat everything, but
I,
you repeat what Nathalia said to you.
what I'm listening is that you are stressed because of the overload of homework and assignments. I understand.
Aww.
Mm.
So, Nathalia, how did that make you feel when your mom responded in that way?
That she understands and she knows the reason why I'm doing a little bit poorly in school is because I'm stressed out. And now that I know that she knows, I don't have to worry about explaining it all the time.
Yay! See, that was so good.
Yeah.
Nancy, do you want to say anything else about that? Like, did it take effort for you to like, okay, let me try, what did that make you feel like?
Well, first I have to I had to remember to wear my oxygen mask, and then just look directly into Natalia's eyes to make sure that I value her and that I validate everything that she's saying. And to respond back, I um, confirm with her what she said by letting her know that I understand what are her worries and her concerns.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Everybody has goosebumps. Thank you. Okay. So I want you each to think about one value, and I know this says 3 words and all of that, but um, I want you to think about one value that you hold dear in your family. What word do you want to describe you and your family? What would you want your family to be remembered for? Just pick one of those and try to fit it into one word. If it takes a sentence, that's fine.
We have three, of course, probably more, but we chose kindness.
Oh, okay, very good.
We want our family to be remember that we are not only kind with one another, but to others as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Very good. Thanks. Okay. Tell us about a time when you felt especially loved within your family.
Nathalia or me?
Either Nathalia can.
Well, I feel loved by my mom all the time, but I think one time or sometimes that's my favorite part is when she wants to watch some of my shows because I think we both have very different tastes in different shows. But there's one show that we both watch that she actually ended up really liking because the moral of the story of the entire show is really great and it has a lot of good many good lessons in it. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Um, but yeah, we both watch it together, and I like that she shows interest into what I'm interested in also.
Mhm.
So I think yeah, that when we can both find interest into things and bond over it, I think that's when I feel really loved.
That is beautiful. So I think sometimes we as parents or grandparents think that love means meeting the needs, well, not the wants, I'll say wants, not needs, the wants of children, and that is going to cost financially in order to make a child happy, which a parent or grandparent may equate with love. But love is shown, as Nathalia is saying, in different ways. The time that it takes to sit and watch a television show may be something that many parents feel like, I don't have time for that. I don't, but how much time does it take? If a show is on, let's say once a week, then that's 1 hour a week. Do you really not have time for that? Or if it's a half-hour show, do you really not have time for that? It's about what we consider to be most important at that time. Time flies so quickly, and any special time that's as simple as watching a television show without your computer on your lap, without flipping through the phone, is a time that your child will remember. How beautiful. Thank you, Nathalia. Okay, so, and if we don't do that, then parents may not be aware of the thoughts that children are having because the parent is not spending time, the feelings that they may have, or the behaviors. And will that end up to be a good thing or a bad thing? When children are ignored, then we are not listening to or being involved in their lives in a trustworthy way so that we'll know what's happening, so that we will know what their concerns are, where they feel safe enough to come and talk to us about anything. So we want to feel loved, supported, comfortable, open, respected, and appreciated. We also want to be able to solve problems together. So let's talk about that a little bit. Um, and before you answer, one of the things that I wanted to ask about is if you and Nathalia have had conversations about underage drinking. So you talk about it, you hear, you respond in a loving way, you appreciate what each of you say, and then you're in partnership. You don't have to go through those steps, but I'd like you to share what you have talked about in terms of underage drinking. And Nathalia, how did that make you feel?
Well, yes, we have had multiple conversations about underage drinking, and honestly, it made me feel pretty secure, and knowing that we both know that we think it's bad, because underage drinking is not good, and well, I felt like that she knows that I know it's bad. It's very clear to both of us what we think of it.
Mhm, mhm,
It was definitely a tough conversation to have with Natalia, uh, because she's underage, and to discuss about alcohol. But I think it was an important conversation to have the discussion with Natalia, um, my daughter, that for her to know that underage drinking is not only safe because um, it's very unsafe in so many ways. You could get intoxicated, end up in the hospital, and create problems in such as nowadays what young teenagers go through. They drive drunk and run into accidents, and sometimes they even end up dead.
mhm, mhm,
So it was definitely a conversation we had to it. have in order for her to know um, the consequences of drinking alcohol
Mhm.
being underage.
Right. Thank you so much. Um, and and this kind of conversation is one that develops out of the love and communication and trust that a parent and child have with each other. I mean, if the first time you have a conversation about something, it's about underage drinking, and not well, not even how was your day, or you are such a great child. I'm so glad that you're in my life. I mean, so conversation should happen before we have these kinds of conversations out of the communication, trust, and love that's developed between a parent and a child. And the other thing is that Nathalia probably goes to school with young people. I'm not saying they are her best friends or not, but whose parents have a different opinion about values or underage drinking. They may say, it's okay as long as they're drinking in my house, or they may have other attitudes like that instead of being honest that underage drinking is illegal for anyone who's under the age of 21. I mean, so like that's the bottom line, and that's the value that someone should have in their home, with the understanding. Mommy, can I taste it? Oh, sure. Joe, just go in the refrigerator and pop that can open. I mean, and so, but that is what happens in many homes, not only with alcohol, but with marijuana. And so it is so good to hear that you've had that conversation. Natalia, do you know of anyone who within their family, underage drinking is not a big deal?
I actually don't, mostly because that's a very clear and sensitive topic. Mostly because our school tries to have a lot of we have like a lot of anti-drinking, vaping ads everywhere around the school. And so I would say no, I really don't know anyone like that.
Mhm.
Also, I do understand that it is very bad because if I don't understand how it could even be okay because underage drinking and how alcohol affects the young mind before it's fully developed
Mhm.
can stump its development really badly.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think, but yeah, no, I don't know anyone who drinks.
Yeah, very good. And so at all costs, protect that brain. you know,
Yes.
uh, the adolescent brain doesn't fully develop until someone is 25 years of age. Why is it sometimes hard for people to share their true thoughts and feelings with their family? I think we've talked about that a little bit already. So, and time is kind of going quickly here. So it can be really hard, but you can learn to use your clear skills to share your true feelings and thoughts. I did want to ask, do you have a comment about why it is hard sometimes for parents and children to communicate their true feelings?
Mm. I think it's not easy at times because um, the child could be, eh, worried that their parent is going to be upset,
Mhm.
and it takes a lot of trust, communication, um, to build that.
Mhm.
But I think communication is the key, and it's good to talk with the child and listen, because I believe teenagers are, I hear teenagers and that they don't feel like parents listen to them because they are at that stage of their life that they're teenagers, and teenagers are not considered to be responsible.
Mhm.
So they're they don't feel validated, and but a lot of teenagers are very responsible, and They have their own opinions and their own brain to think. And it was just, we have to take the moment to listen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. When there are difficult times, I think you've spoken about, if you don't mind me asking this question, you were saying that your dad had COVID-19. He was in the hospital. So, how did you talk to Nathalia about that? How did you talk to each other about that in terms of this frightening situation, this unknown situation where you know how many people have passed away due to COVID, and you can't help but think, oh no, oh no, oh no, I don't want that to happen to my dad, Nathalia's grandfather. So I know it's a real personal question, but how did you talk to Nathalia about that? I'm sure you had to support each other. So what was that like?
Well, it was definitely a difficult timing, and we supported one another by being showing love to one another, having a lot of faith, most importantly, faith that everything's going to be fine. But as you mentioned, Dr. Boone, a lot of people did die, and it was a pandemic that the entire world was suffering from.
Mm-hmm.
But what we mostly did together was we got closer with one another by doing activities. And with those activities, we were able to inhale and exhale a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and appreciate one another with doing things that not distract us, but most importantly, stay positive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, during the entire oh, sorry.
No, 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 no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, during the entire process, I was, I didn't, since it's something like this, all right, I don't think I've ever really witnessed anybody in my family like that I was super close to die. And my grandfather, it was like a really big part of it. I love everything he does. His garden. He also taught me how to be a very patient person, especially when things grow. And he's the most patient person I know because he has plants that he has to look at like every day. So, but thinking about I didn't even want to think about having like that thought in my mind. That's where I really practiced. If I believe he's going to be okay, he's going to be okay. Like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even want to worry about it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also tried to convince like my mom to think about it like how I did, but I can't think that way because, well, that's her dad, and she's going to be pretty devastated if something bad happened to him. So we did help lift each other up through that time.
Mm-hmm.
Most importantly, by removing negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. And so this is so important in this conversation about communication because sometimes parents feel like some situation is too heavy to bring to their child. And I'm glad that you haven't experienced death in the way that some people have, like some loved ones have really died, have actually died. And sometimes when grief is involved, it doesn't have to be grief that has to do with death. It could be grief over anything that we lose. And sometimes parents think that that is too big for a child to hear, to listen to understand, and all of that. When in fact, we don't want to leave each other outside of those situations because, then we walk around acting like everything is not okay when it is not, that everything is okay when it's not okay. COVID was not okay, is not okay. And so that brings me to this beautiful vision board that you and Nathalia made. And can you just talk to us a little bit about what we see here?
So this is an activity that we actually do pretty constantly. This is a vision board, and it actually is the three words, the value words of our house. And we decorated and wrote down the value words of our household and our family. And one of them is to be courageous, equality, and having compassion for one another.
Mhm.
And I believe that Nathalia definitely has stand for that. And I do my best to do so as well.
Mhm.
Working with the community has given me this opportunity to do so. And most importantly, the quality time that I have with Nathalia. Actually, as a matter of fact, I believe that um, Vision Board was during the pandemic, if I'm not
Mhm.
confused.
Mhm.
So it helped in so many ways.
Mhm. Thank you.
You want to share?
Oh yeah, so I actually really enjoyed doing these because it was nice to set like a theme and then contribute to what um we felt that theme would look like in our own way, and then we shared it with each other. So I thought that was a really cool part of it, and it helped us both understand what our values are, and but in our and we could show them how we understood them with the vision board.
Mhm. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And we're going to continue for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to open for questions for us. I'm sure you have more questions for Nathalia than either Nancy or I. But so I may not have time to go through the whole rest of the presentation. But I think that we have said a lot in these few minutes already. So, what does a goal look like? Let's say you have a goal of wanting to talk to each other more, but you have to know how you're going to step forward toward those goals. They have to have actions along with them. And is it small enough to really make a difference? So, talk to each other about their feelings for 8 hours every day. No, of course, that will not work. Watch TV together every night. Well, maybe not every night, but just shaking their heads. But
So
maybe just the special show, be nicer and talk more. Well, that's good, but how are you going to move forward with that? Eat dinner together 3 times this week and talk about each person's day. Is that a good goal? Why or why not? And it's good because you can step forward by talking, eating and talking about your day at the same time. And it's realistic. 3 days a week is realistic. Nathalia, I want you to share with me what your mom shared with me about cooking with your friends. How did that come about?
well, cooking with my friends. When you cook with people, I've cooked with my friends before. I cooked with one of my other friends with his mom, and we made like this really cool meal. But what I learned from that also, especially with doing it with my friends, is that it really brings everybody together because it's like we all have our own separate part that we all do, and I think of it kind of like an orchestra. Like everybody has their own pieces that they work on, but when you put it together, it sounds great. So relating that to cooking, when everybody does their part really well and they work together, the food's gonna come out awesome.
That is so good. And sometimes when we get fast food or just drive on the way home, and if you're really busy, that's understandable. But at least have some time where you cook together. So thank you so much. That's really cool. And you've already talked about how you face problems. Um, and you already talked about exploring feelings. And Nancy, why don't you share this slide with us? And then I think we'll move to questions because it's 12:48 and we need to move ahead so people can ask their questions and have their thoughts heard.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Begin stands for be mindful, explore thoughts and feelings, give space. That's a difficult one for parents. Sometimes it's difficult to accept that our babies are growing and we have to give space.
Mhm.
Invite change. Inviting change sometimes is difficult for people to accept change, but it's going to happen.
Mhm.
Now do what matters. together, we have to do what matters in the present moment
Mhm.
towards the future.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And that's really important too. What are we really arguing and fighting about in families? Is it what matters? You know, we want to have our homes neat and clean. We want our children's rooms to be spotless. But if but if there's one sloppy day, let's say there's one sloppy day, then what harm will that do? So sometimes we can invite change by having a sloppy day, by having a pajama day, by doing something that brings us together where it's not always this and that and da 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 da, and that's the only communication that exists. So let me just go through these. I can get these to you another way. The last thing that I will say is that these are the things that are important to do with our children: to express care, show my children that I enjoy being with them and care about the things that are important to them. Challenge growth, help my children to see possibilities for their own futures and to work hard to be their best. Provide support, guide and encourage my children as they work to complete tasks and achieve goals. Share power. Ooh, that sounds like a difficult one. Take my children's ideas seriously and work together to solve problems and reach goals. Expand possibilities. Help my children connect with people, ideas, and opportunities that help them grow. I want to lastly say, excuse me, so I'm backing up, back. Okay, so I want to say that this information is part of a curriculum that's called Coping Together. And Coping Together is a 6-week, 8-week course that families go through together. And you can have the opportunity to go through this free of charge and have a wonderful foundation for communicating with your children. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn off the screen share.
Hey, Dr. So the first question that we have, they were asking if the PowerPoint is going to be available for everyone.
Yes, I think I can make that happen.
All right, perfect. And then the second, there's three more questions. The next one is: parents have fears for their children. How do those fears define, and what limits parents from talking to their children about them?
Well, I'll just kick it off by saying that I think parents are hesitant to talk to their children because of the way that they were raised and parented. And that fear may have a lot to do with what they think will happen in their own families, which, again, at the very beginning, I mentioned that, we just need to not dwell on how we were raised, but in fact, think about our creating a new family dynamic in terms of our values, which are the foundation of our family root system, and then make sure that we're following along in those kinds of things. What do you think, Nancy? You want to ask the question again?
Oh no, I heard. I agree with you, Dr. Boone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you want to go to the next question?
Yes, please.
All right, the next question is: what do you say to the child if they think you are talking to them about a risky behavior because we think they are doing those behaviors?
Nancy, you want, well, first of all, ask the question, and you may think that they won't tell the truth. And then you can say, I'm saying this to you not because I think you are doing this. I'm telling you this and warning you about this particular subject because there are dangers associated with it, and I want to keep you safe.
Yeah, it's pretty yeah, I think that's good.
Mhm.
And so, like I said earlier, we have to give space to our children, and that's a great lesson that I've learned recently with my best friend. And it's true, giving space to your teenager, it's important, and to because they will come to you, and just when they are hurt or they're feeling sad, eventually they will tell their parents. Or but most importantly, yes, parents are allowed to ask their children. You could talk to them. They're not robots.
Okay. No, yeah. I think especially I think it matters the way how you bring it up really matters more than asking the question itself. Because if you ask the question just because you hear other kids are doing this, and since your kid matches that age range, there are some parents who automatically think, you're doing this. I'm gonna stop it right now. And then they bust in like, stop doing this instead of asking you, are you doing this? And then trusting that the kid is like, either they say yes, then they have to find a way to fix it. But if they say no, because there are signs that someone's doing something bad, they will understand that no, their child is not doing this. They were just thinking irrationally because parents have fears. Yeah, everybody has a fear of something. Like you're afraid of someone doing this because you care about them.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. That was very insightful, Nathalia. And parents do have a lot of fears, especially, when they see things on the news or they hear from other parents that have difficulty with their own children, then they tend to, you know, think that their own child is doing that, especially if a parent is a teacher. And I say that because my mother taught school and then she was a guidance counselor. And whoo, did we get it when she got home? She just thought we were doing the same things that the children that she had to deal with were doing. So, but mom, I don't even think about that, which I really didn't think about that. And so, but it is a dangerous world. It's dangerous on social media. It's
Mhm.
dangerous in school. But when you can create a boundary around your child, meaning that the parents that of the children that are their friends, then you kind of know what your child is going to be exposed to if they go out with or visit other children. Ask the question, where are you going? What time are you going to be back? Call the parent and say, these are the values in my home. Do you have the same values? No, I think it's okay for my child to smoke marijuana as long as they're home. Then it's like, well,
I don't think I've ever.
Natalia won't be coming to visit you today.
And you said something very important, Dr. Boone.
Mhm.
We cannot control the outside other than set boundaries, but most importantly, reminding our kids about those values, like you just
Mhm.
said.
Mhm. Well, it looks like we have 2 minutes left. I mean, this time really has gone so quickly. Does anyone else have a question out there or a comment that you would like to make?
We've got one more question for you.
Okay.
Um, do you think some topics are too big for small children? And are there any certain ages where that may be true?
Well, I'll say that one of the, especially if we're talking about substance use, there is a little booklet that I use for elementary school that's called Why Animals Don't Smoke. And it's cute, it's funny, there's stickers associated with it, and we have some available. But when it's put in the right context where a child can relate to it, then it's fine to have that conversation. And then they'll understand what the harms are. So are animals smarter than some people? I mean, that's not the point, but the point is, why don't animals smoke? And it's not because cigarettes are not available for animals, it's because of the harm that's caused. So that, I would say, age appropriate information is important to share. That is elementary school level. And then things like washing your hands, and that helps even during COVID, where you want to make sure that things are clean so that these bugs won't impact you or the people that you love. So there are age appropriate materials that should be used for those kinds of conversations.
I agree 100%. Especially with the whole age thing. Especially with how you mentioned the context of some things. Like if some children go through a specific thing, then I think that they will need an explanation for that thing because it happened in the main context. But things at like a certain time, so they know that it's a bad thing. Like elementary school level, and then like up, because after that is middle school,
Mhm.
and then middle school, it's like you're trying to find out who you are in middle school. Like, am I? Yeah. And then you're growing up to your future in high school, and you want like things to you want to understand things and not be confused in the process.
Mhm. Okay, well, I mean, I don't want to say goodbye. And I thank you so much for joining in today. So, again, Coping Together is a fantastic um, curriculum. They have fun activities, and you're together with a group of other parents and children, so it's not a counseling session. It really is an enjoyable curriculum to engage in. So if you're interested in that, please let us know, because as I mentioned, it's free of charge, and you will definitely benefit. um, Nancy is a facilitator, and and we have other facilitators as well. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being here today, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you for inviting us, Dr. Boone.
Really
Welcome.
appreciate it. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you all. Y'all are awesome.
Thanks.